Relevant cost for decision facilitating. Let me explain to you what we mean. So we have our department, Sandhill Company. What is it? Central Computer Department of Sandhill Company, Central Computer Department, big IT department, has a big budget, millions of dollars. It has a capacity, 18,000 hours plus. And it suggests a dual rate. What would that be? Well, 3 million is fixed, okay? And the rest depends on how much hours are used. What do we mean by that? Well, the relevant range, if it's between 6,000 to 18,000 hours used, we can have a relevant range. Can we? Can we do that? Yes or no? Let me. So basically, we have a relevant range like this. There we can actually predict the variable cost. And the fixed cost is 3 million here, and the variable cost is 200 per hour. Are you with me here? What is the relevant range? Between 6,000 and 18,000 hours. Are you with me here? All right, so that's what we mean by the fixed cost, 3 million. If it's only 6,000 hours used, then basically there's $500 an hour charged. If we use all of those hours, then $160 per hour charge. You with me here? All right, so the fixed cost per unit used, hour, goes down as you use more. Okay. The budgeted long run usage is 250 per hour. That's the average. The microcomputer division promises we will use $8,000 per hour. Okay, let me bring up the peripheral division. Mr. Division Manager, how many hours are you going to use in the coming year? 4,000 hours. Okay, thank you. All right, and so we log in 4,000 hours for the other division manager. Okay, so now the IT department knows that they have to have capacity for 12,000 hours. They have 18, it's within capacity. Okay. Now, the budgeted variable cost per hour is $200 per hour used. Okay? That might be because of just labour costs. You use more than you charge more. Okay? It's a labour cost that may be causing that variable cost to occur. The actual usage in 2009 is 9,000 hours, 3,000 hours. One division said, we only need 8,000. They used 9. The other one said we need 4, but we used only 3. Here's the idea. 12,000 was budgeted, 12,000 was used. We're going to talk about the gaming that's going on here. But let's see the first thing I want you to take away. Number one, why dual rate is better than single rate. When you have a single rate, this is the key thing that the user department, the peripheral or the other division see. They see $450. What do we mean? $200 plus $250 per hour. $450, right? You with me? That's all they see. And so some company like IBM or Xerox or Tata from India or some other company comes along and say, we can offer you all your outsourced services. We can offer all your IT. You no longer have to have an IT department. We can do it for you. We can do it for cheaper. How much, Mr. Supplier? How much, Mr. IT Service? How about $250 per hour? Sounds like a good deal. Oh, $450, $250. Oh, too good to be true. Oh, I've got to say yes to this idea. If you're in peripheral or the other computer division, you might think twice. You might think, I don't think I want the central computer services this year. We're going to go outside. Okay? This is what allocating a single rate communicates. Okay? All right? Here's the problem. That $250 is still there even if we go outside, because it's fixed. It's only $200 you're saving. Right? So the dual rate says the following. There are two signals, a variable and a fixed. And so now the user departments know that if they have this inclination, or they get a phone call from Xerox or IBM saying, hey, we've got a new deal. It's a super deal for you, and it's 20% off if you accept in the next week. Oh, that sounds too good. How much is it per hour? They say, oh, we got a great deal, $250 an hour. And what are you going to say? You're going to look back at your signal. Okay, here's the signal, because you're still going to be charged $250. You're going to avoid this, right? Avoidable costs, that's your relevant cost. $250. What are you going to say? I'm sorry, not this year. Try again next year, okay? So this is how the dual rate gives a different signal to the user departments, all right? It's a pure economic signal. And that's why the dual rate is better than the budget rate. It helps clarify the decision facilitating desire to look outside the organisation, all right? Okay, so let's go again on the benefits. The benefits. Number one, service efficiency. User departments become customers. Remember, control service, put pressure on service department to provide value for money. All right, as soon as I start charging you, you start paying attention. Is it good quality? Is it on time? Okay, are you actually delivering the service that I need? Okay, people start paying attention, they start monitoring. Okay, that's the benefit whether you use a single rate or dual rate. Okay, so just allocate $1 and you'll start to influence the other people, the users. Next, decision, signal relevant cost to the user department. Remember, the single rate method is very hard to do that because they might incorrectly view that $450 as totally avoidable, but only $200 was avoidable, not 450. You with me here? Okay, number two, dual rate method enables that to overcome. So dual rate method, and you start to allocate and you have a dual rate method, you've got two benefits. Number one, you improve control, decision influencing, and you improve relevant information for decision facilitating. You with me here? Class, can I have a show of hands? Are you with me? I want you to get it, all right? We're going to stay with this for another 20 minutes, the same example. It's not going away. So I want you to take your time, absorb everything. We're still playing with the 200 and 250. 200, 250. We're still playing with the 8,000 hours, 4,000 hours, the 9,000, 3,000 actual. We're still playing with these numbers. It's not going to change, so just stay with me here. All right, so we're back, 12,000 hours. Total budget, 5.4 million, 450 per hour. You saw that before. Okay, support costs allocated to do divisions under single rate method. We would allocate 9,000 at 450, 3,450. So microcomputer division uses more than what they promised. Peripheral uses less than what they promised. Which division benefited? Which one benefited? Micro or peripheral? Hands up for micro. Hands up for peripheral. What if I were to tell you that it was the peripheral division that benefited? By actually saying we're going to use 4,000 and then we actually only use 3,000, they on average get a lower allocation of the total costs. You do the calculation. If peripheral used 4,000, right? Do the calculation. If they said they're going to use 4,000 or 3,000. Let's have a look. 12,000. We can go back and check that. We can check our, what's our budget? They promised they want to use 4,000. Okay? But they only use 3,000. If they said they're only going to use 3,000, right? What is the total basis? 11,000? Yes? So therefore, how much is the rate per hour? Do the calculation. 3 million divided by 11,000, or 5.4 million divided by 11,000. Let's have a look. Oh, stay with me here. 5.4 million divided by 11,000. How much per hour? Is it more or less than 450? More or less? Do the calculation. 5.4 million divided by 11,000. Let me write it. Let me say what we're doing here. Let's. It's more, of course, because the denominator is smaller. All right? All right? See, the peripheral division said they only want 4,000. Okay? The other one division said 8,000. Okay? The other division ended up using 9. The peripheral ended up using 3. Okay, when they budgeted at 12,000, then we divide 5.4 million by that, and then we equal 450, right? But if peripheral was honest and said, we're only going to use 3,000, so therefore the budget is 5.4 million divided by 11 equals how much? Come on, help me. 5.4 million divided by 11,000. Where's your calculator? Help me here. It's more than 450 or less?
Yes.
It's more?
It's more.
Yeah, how much?
490.
490! So now it's 490, and so now let's allocate that 490 by 9,000 by 3,000. What's 490 times 3,000? Pardon? How much?
It's larger than 144.
490 times 3,000 equals 1. Is that right? Yes or no? Okay, look, just calm down, all right? There's just little numbers here, all right? So, which is a bigger number? 147,000 or 1,350,000? If your peripheral equipment decision, your peripheral equipment division, which do you prefer? Do you prefer this allocation or this allocation? Do you prefer to be, no, do you prefer to be charged 1.35 million or do you prefer to be charged 1.4 million? Hands up for this one. Hands up for this one. Good. Okay. Which one is a scenario where the manager of the division is more honest? Is it this one? Hands up. Is it this one? Hands up. This one. They're honest. We only need to use 3,000. We use 3,000. So maybe the manager of peripheral division plays a game. Ah, well, what's the game? Always budget more than what you're going to use. Never budget less. Always over. Add 20%. Ooh, that's called gaming. It's called gaming. It's called lying. It's strategic lying. That's what a game is. It's lying strategically. So when I ring you up, so what's your budget for this year? Oh, I think we could do 5,000. Even if you only go use 3,000. You with me? So it makes the whole allocation rate smaller. Multiply what you actually use, you get less allocated. That's a game. I want you to take that away tonight. The game that managers can play when we get into these allocations, when we're working with budgets and then we're working with actuals. It opens up the kahuna, it opens up the box to game playing. And you might say, oh, you'll get caught out the next year. Under a repeatable game, people will see you do that. But who knows? I may not be in the company next year. I don't care. All right, a lot of managers, they're under profit pressure. Their bonus is in the millions. You never know. They don't know where they're going to be in 12 months' time. The average tenure of a CEO in the US is only 3 years. Did you know that? If the average is 3 years, all right, and we have a normal distribution, there's 3, then what about here? 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. So you might say, oh, with a game, oh, the microcomputer division, they'll see the game you're playing, then they'll change their strategy. But you may not be there in 12 months. So keep that in mind, okay? These are games that are played. They are real. Because we're doing allocation, we're trying to influence people in the organisation. So I want you to look at this exercise in a totally different way. It becomes more exciting when you see the game. Okay? You see the game. And so now we go dual rate method. Now we go, can we reduce that game a little bit? Yes, we can, because now we cut in half the amount of money that is gameable. Remember, it's under the single rate method is 5.4 million. Now under the dual rate, it's only 3 million that is gained, right? The fixed, because the variable is at the actual rate. $200 actual, okay? The 2.4 million, that's actual. You can't gain that. You with me here, class, all right? So under the dual rate method, it reduces the gaming, but there's still gaming opportunity, okay? And so here we have the same again, fixed cost, 2 million. Variable costs, 1.8 million. Okay, that's allocated to microcomputer. What about peripheral? Fixed costs, 1 million. Variable cost, 600,000. You can see different allocation, but not as much variance because of the difference between the budget and actual. Okay, so go back and study that. I want to take you to the next slide. And we want to just do some comparison of the allocation basis. Under either method, allocation of support costs can be based on one of the following scenarios: budgeted overhead rate and budgeted hours. Budgeted overhead rate and actual hours, which is what we did with the dual rate. Or actual overhead rate and actual hours. It's very hard to work on actual overhead rate. It really doesn't have much meaning at the start of the period, because at the start of the period you want to set up a budget. Why? Because you want to get feedback from the divisions about how much you're going to use. You need that information at the beginning, right? Otherwise, how can you plan for capacity? Right? You can't just wait everything until the end. That's what we learned in ABC costing and standard costing analysis. You have a budget, so you get an idea of what the costs are likely to be. Then you do cost plus pricing, then you can work out prices. Why? Because you have to work out prices before you sell something, right? You can't just wait to the end and then you ring up all the customers that bought your product during the period. Oh, we've worked it out, it's $7.99. Can you just send it to this PayPal account? Too late. All right, that's why we do budgeting. We do stuff at the start of the period. Why? Because you can't just use actuals all the time. Okay, actuals don't always work. So keep that in mind. This number 3 is not always realistic. Okay, actual and actual. This is very common. Number 2, budget overhead rate and actual hours. Okay, so choosing between actual and budgeted rates. Budget is known at the beginning of the period, while actual will be known with certainty at the end of the period. So let me remind you again, what are the benefits of allocating costs? Here are the 4 benefits of all the reading I've done and all the teaching I've done in this cost allocation and people I've spoken to in various industries. There's only 4 reasons. Let me go through them one by one, and then we're going to show you the last part of the example. Number 1, we want to control service. You know that. That's making you become a customer. You start monitoring. So let me give you a research that has been done to this. Normally we know In management, there's this theory called agency theory. How many of you have heard of that? You know about that. Byron taught you about agency theory. You know that. But it applies to organisations just as important as it applies to financial accounting. It applies to how managers are organised in the organisation. That is, there is information asymmetry between senior management and sales managers. Information overload, things like that. That's why you delegate. You delegate because you cannot do everything yourself. Suddenly, once you delegate, you have information asymmetry problem. Suddenly, they can do what they like and not tell you everything that they do. So you find other mechanisms to control them. Guess what? There's this professor from, I think it's Stanford University. His name is Candace Prendergast. And the professor is a he, not a she. Candace often is known as a girl's name, not a boy's name, but he's a he. Okay, but that's not the point. All right, so there's this professor, and he has done research on customer, how the customer is used to monitor the agent. Which is what we're talking about tonight. By starting to the cafeteria charge in the peripheral division, suddenly the peripheral division is now watching the cafeteria. Are we getting value for money? Okay, is this the best service provider? Can we get someone to compete? You know what I mean? But when it's all free and nothing gets allocated, no one cares. No one cares, because if you complain and say, go outside, what are you complaining about? Are you getting it for free already? You with me here? This is the negotiation that goes on. But once you start allocating, now I'm watching you. Okay, I'm going to review your performance. I'm going to monitor you. And so Candace Prendergast came up with this idea that, there are all these mechanisms to monitor agents. But very few of us realise that customers are a very effective mechanism to monitor agents. So, how many of you have actually gone to a 7-Eleven or a Circle K or some convenience store, and there's a little sign just near the cash register, and it says, if you are not provided with a receipt on your transaction, please call this number and you will get a reward of, say, $50 or $100. Something that's 5 or 10 times more than the average transaction. Okay, how many of you have seen that before? Never? I've seen it, but why would you do that? Why would the owner of that store do that? Yeah, so as soon as you see that, what are you going to look for? You're going to hope you don't get a receipt, right? Right? Because suddenly, you know, you're just buying something for $5 or $10, like just 7-Eleven, right? Just little thing, right? But suddenly you can turn that into $50 or $100 if you just ring this number. You're just hoping, I hope they don't give me a receipt, don't give me a receipt. Oh no, you're not going to give me a receipt, are you? Okay, give me a receipt, okay. All right, next customer, are you with me here? All right, so it forces you to start monitoring. Now, why is getting a receipt important? Part of that monitoring process. There's only one way to generate the receipt. How is that? If you ring up that transaction, right, in the cash register, push the button, bang, the till opens to put the money in, right? And then, and out comes the receipt, right? Shoot, and give to you, right? So, okay, I want to steal money, and I'm in the store. Okay, maybe I'll take some money out, put it in here. I push it back. But at the end of the day, there's an electronic recording of every transaction, of every bit of every dollar that should have been put in that till. You with me here? Why? Because the customer is looking for that receipt. How do I steal money if I'm working in a store? This is a good subject, isn't it, right? Teaching you how to steal, okay? How do you do that? You pretend to type it in, type in the amount, you take the money, and say, oh, thank you very much, and you don't give a receipt. Then there's no record of that transaction. All you see at the end of the week or end of the month is inventory loss, stock loss. And you might put that down to some theft. Someone's come in and stole the cigarette, or they've stole some drink, or they've stole some chocolate bar, they've walked out now without paying. It's not your fault. Sorry, stuff happens. Okay, so that is a key thing. Your little sign there says you don't get a receipt, ring this number and we'll give you your reward. So that forces you to look for that receipt. You with me? And then you tell the people working behind the till, you need to give a receipt every time, because customers will be rewarded if you don't give a receipt. Bless you. You with me here? All right? Now, Candace Prendergast talked about the customer is a very effective agent, a very effective monitor of the agent. And he found that in several industries. So have a look at that. I could dig up some of those publications they did in top management journals. So there's some research for you. And that's the reality. That's what we mean by controlling service. Signal relevant costs, we showed you that by stopping you from outsourcing. You don't see $450 to avoid, you see only $200 to avoid, right? The variable costs. Next, you control user efficiency. Now that you're charging me for use, especially the variable part, fixed, I can't do much about that, all right? I'm stuck with it, okay? But the variable, I can influence that, so therefore, I may not ring the technician because I get a variable charged every time it comes down to C. I will learn how to fix the minor problems myself. Are you with me here, all right? So that changes the behaviour, it increases the efficiency. People become more knowledgeable of little IT problems and being able to solve them themselves. So that minimises IT costs. Are you with me? So there's efficiency. And controlling capacity. Here's the thing I haven't talked about. What was the total capacity in this exercise of the IT resources? 18,750. What was the average amount used? 12,000, only 2/3. Not 3/4, not 9/10, only 2/3. That is excess capacity. If we just start only charging the departments for the amount used, in other words, we should only allocate 2/3 of that $5.4 million of costs. And then come back to the IT department. IT department, you're to blame because you jumped up and down, up and down, up and down to get that 18,000 hours capacity. And you didn't plan properly. You over-planned. You got too much for what we need for the next 5 years. So we're going to make you pay for that. That's going to go against you. We can't force your inefficient decision-making on these departments. Okay? So that's what we mean by number 4. It might help control capacity for future improvements, okay, upgrades of IT. Because you know things are being allocated, more eyes are watching, okay? So don't ask for too much, all right? So having said that, here is the most tricky part. We got our, again, there's our total budget. There is our fixed costs, 3 million. There we have long run usage, 8,000 hours, 4,000 hours, we have a total of 12,000. We have 200 per hour used. Actually, we used $9,200 per hour. 9,000 hours, 3,000 hours were actually used. You know how to game the system. What do? You say the budget is going to be more or less. Hands up for more. Hands up for less. More! You always say more, right? Didn't you say more or less? You put in for less or more. If you put in for less, the denominator goes down, the overall rate that you're allocating goes up, so then you get lumped with more. You don't want that. You want to budget for more than what you're going to use. We went over this 15 minutes ago, right? If you're going to play a game, are you going to budget for more or less than what you're actually going to use? Hands up for more. You're going to budget for more. That's a game. I want you to keep that in mind. It's gaming time. Okay? So, peripheral, they may have gamed the system. Okay? So, let's have a look at what it means over time. Here we have actual usage. 8 and 4. There are 3 scenarios, 3 rows. 1, 2, 3. What does that mean? This row goes all the way to here. You with me? Second scenario, number 2 goes all the way to here. Third scenario, here goes all the way to here. All right? So that's how you read this. They are not independent. Every column is not independent. You've got one scenario going all the way through. You with me? So we're starting off. If we start off with 8,000, 4,000, which is what we've been talking about for the previous slides. So budgeted usage. Then we get allocated 2 million and 1 million. Okay, remember, how much is the fixed costs? 3 million. Okay, so the allocation base is 2 and 1 because 8 and 4, right? But the budget is still 2 and 1 because they promised 8 and 4. Yes, actual is 2 and 1 because actual equals budget. What about capacity? Based on practical capacity allocation, 112.80 and 640. Why? Because they only used 12,000 hours out of 18,000. So you may be a very Scroogey CEO of your company. You say, no, I want the IT department to wear the cost of their over capacity. They're building their own little fortress in my organisation. Okay, if they build too big, they've got to pay for that extra. So therefore, it's only fair we only allocate what was used by the departments. That's reasonable. And so that's what this means here. They're only allocating the part of that 3 million, not all of the 3 million. See, we're allocating all of the 3 million here. We're allocating all of the 3 million here. Remember, 3 million fixed capacity is for 18,000 hours. They only use 12,000. You with me? So that's why you're only allocating part. You're only allocating less than 2 million of the 3 million here. That's what this means. Okay? This is number 4. This is the number 4 reason for how you may allocate costs. What do I mean by number 4? I mean this reason here. Circle here, controlling capacity. All right? How do you control capacity? You force only the allocation of the proportion of the capacity of the fixed costs. You don't allocate all of the fixed costs. Okay? And so it signals back to the IT department, hey, you built something that's too big. All right? You are not planning properly. You should have got more information from what was actually going to be used. That's what this scenario is. Number 4. All right, let's have a look at the second case. Actual usage, 8,000, 7,000. Peripheral suddenly is using much more. Budgeted usage allocation base is 2 and 1. That doesn't change because peripheral said 4, but they ended up using 7. So guess what? Peripheral gets charged much more now based on actual usage. And then here, of course, peripheral division gets charged much more. Right, because of actual. Now, finally, here's the game playing. Peripheral says 12 and 4 for the budget, but here's the game where peripheral says, oh, we budget for 4, but we only use 2,000. Let's see how much gets allocated. Instead of 1 million, only 600,000. There's your game. All right, remember, how do you play the game? Always put in a higher budget than what you actually used. What was the budget? The budget was 4,000. What do you use? 2,000. Guess what? Instead of getting allocated 1 million, you only get allocated 600,000. Who pays that extra 0.4? Your other sister division. They're not very happy. Okay, they're going to kill you next year, but you may not be there, so why do I care? Okay, all right? I'm reminding you of the game again. So go through that, have a look, and show what I've showed you tonight is a real good example on a real significant cost that most organisations have to confront. And it's only going to get larger and larger. All right? IT cost is not going down, it's going up. Okay? They have to confront. Do they outsource? Do they in-house? Do they partially outsource? Do they partially in-house? These are big questions companies all around the world have to ask. What we looked at tonight was, okay, once you've decided to go in-house, how do you want the other divisions to behave? How do you want them to become aware? How do you minimise their gaming? How do you allocate these costs so you influence the decisions of the other departments so they, number one, monitor? Okay, remember the 4 reasons why you do it. What are the 4 benefits? What are the 4 benefits? The controlling capacity was number 4. Okay, and so that was number 4, but what were the other 3 other benefits? We had a look at it here. There we go. Benefits. You can get other people to monitor you. That's Candace Prendergast's theory. Okay? Agency theory. You can get the customer to do the monitoring. Or you can signal relevant costs, so it stops premature outsourcing opportunities. Okay? You can control user efficiency. You're going to charge me a rate based on actual usage, a fixed rate. If someone's going to come and fix your computer, we're going to charge you. Then you think twice. Can I fix it myself? Okay. Controlling capacity. All right? And that controlling capacity is basically what I've showed you in a bit more detail in this slide here. Okay? So, look, they put in 18,750 hours, but on average you're only using 12,000. Who's to blame? Do you pass all $3 million of fixed costs onto these users? It's not fair, right? Maybe you just pass on only 2/3. And then you say to the IT department, look, I told you so. Or when they're planning for more capacity, we're only going to force you to pass on only a portion of the capacity that is used. So it forces you, in your planning for new capacity, to seek more feedback from the user departments to make sure that you plan closer to what the usage is going to be. All of these scenarios I'm talking about now is basically what? Decision influencing. You're just influencing people's choices and decisions and their behaviours, their monitoring, their gaming. You're playing around with the minds of the people in the organisation, don't you? Doesn't this make this example that looks dull and boring as you see it in the chapter come alive?